Yeah, man, it is familiar. We used to, you know what I remembered when I first moved to Turkey, we kept recording. And I used to, before I had a table or a desk or anything, I used to record. I put my laptop on the ironing board. Okay. And we used to record in like my bedroom, like with remember those like those yellow curtains behind me and stuff?
I think so, yeah.
So I remember that when I was like back here, basically. So yeah, I think I told you I quit that office I was in, which now now I'm appreciating it more. Like mostly from a aesthetic point of view, like the
Right, yeah.
background looked, I think, better. But I haven't really worked on this one yet. But yeah, they wanted to like nearly double the rent, maybe increase it by 80%. And I was just like, I was annoyed by a few things in the office, so I just kind of left it. I thought I could always go back. I could always, if it was that bad. So yeah, I'm working from home, bro.
Nice. Nice. Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
I've got my
Yeah.
other laptop over behind this one.
Mm.
I've got it on mute. It's pinging off, but it's all
Mm.
right. We're going to handle it.
How often do you go office these days?
Probably nowhere near as much as I should. But I sold my car, right? I sold my car.
Okay.
And
Okay.
now I'm like a pedestrian all the time. Okay. Ever been a pedestrian with 3
Okay.
kids? It's kind of hard work.
I have
I live
most of my
I
time.
live on top of like a massive hill as well. I say hill, it's probably a small mountain.
Mm.
And there are no shops on the top of the hill. Any shops are right at the bottom. So even like a pint of milk is a workout.
Ah.
you know.
Mm.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so
That's tough.
yeah, I'm not. I was going to say I'm a bit isolated, but I'm actually. It's refreshing, really, because I haven't not had a car since maybe around 18ish. I'm 31 now,
Oh,
and
really? Okay.
yeah, if you look at like my metabolism and my ability to lose weight, it's probably as I got the car, that's when it all went downhill. you know,
Yeah.
so now I'm
Walking
like,
is powerful, man.
yeah, definitely, yeah, especially where we are, man. It's so hilly. So yeah, it's been a bit of a shift. Every day's leg day.
Are you gonna get another car, or you just sold it and no plans to get another?
I've been meaning to get a bigger one.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of just sitting on the money I made, and maybe I want to save a bit more and add to it. Just if I do get another one, get one quick,
Yeah.
get one better. Sorry,
y-
but
Yeah.
whilst we are surviving without one, I just want to see how long we can push it without one. You know, um,
Yeah.
because
I
it's
mean, we've got two prams. Like we have a single pram, which is, I guess, when we go out with just, for example, well, no, it's just basically when my wife goes out with just the baby. That's what that's for,
yeah,
right? And then when the middle one, when he's coming as well, and going somewhere, then we have to use the double pram. But he's not suited for that pram, bro. Like he's too big now. He's
yeah,
heavy.
yeah,
Like he's gonna break that pram.
yeah,
And so I'll be happy the day when we're no longer using prams. But yeah, when you got 3 kids and no car, then you end up with double pram, depending on the age of the kids, of course. And then once they get out the pram, then it's like, oh, damn roads and riding and like So, alhamdulillah. But yeah,
no,
I think that's a big thing that pushed me to getting a car recently.
yeah,
Was the 3 kids, and it has helped a huge amount in that sense. But yeah, more than 3 years of living in Turkey, I didn't have a car. In the UK, because like I lived about 3 years in the UK, like as an adult, yani, and I didn't have a car at that time. I didn't realize like how limited I was without having a car, because everything was just like not even. I didn't even consider going this place, that place, purely because the bus takes like an hour,
yeah,
and the the car would have taken like 15 minutes, for example, 10 minutes.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
really, that is the difference in it. Obviously, you have Uber, but back then I don't think there was Uber, and
Yeah,
taxi is just kind of expensive.
it adds up, doesn't it? I mean, I don't really do Uber and taxis and stuff. Generally, we just try and get a bus. The other day, I took a train just because it was a different experience for the kids. I think Ilyas hadn't actually been on one yet.
Mm,
So I thought, hey, let's take it to the train.
mm,
It was a couple quid more, but it was fine. Um,
Mm.
But yeah, I was thinking of going to
My middle
London
one's first
soon.
train that he went on.
Yeah.
I think it was his first train he ever went on was the Mecca Medina train,
Oh,
high
nice.
speed one.
That's a nice memory,
So
isn't it?
this is the level of this is the standard we're setting for him.
Oh, man made hijrah, right? Mecca to Medina on a train. That's his memory. That's it.
Yeah,
Allah يبارك.
yeah.
Allah يبارك.
Actually, it was reverse. It was reverse hijrah. It was
Oh,
Medina to Mecca.
oh, man's coming for
Yeah,
the Fatah, bro.
exactly. Yeah, Fat Mecca. Exactly.
Oh, Allah يبارك.
What are you
So,
saying about London?
yeah, I was thinking of going, but now without a car, it's kind of like, oh, what are my options?
Mm,
There's a train, but it doesn't really go where I need to go, and it's quite pricey when you add it all up. And then I realized renting a car is probably
yeah,
cheaper. Um,
yeah.
but and then there's the coach as well, which is also I like coaches. I'm a big coach fan. I'm a big
Really?
fan of coaches.
Mm,
Yeah, if I need to go to the airport and I've got a decent amount of time, I'll get a coach because it's just comfortable and
mm.
stress free. A bit slow, but yeah, I like the mood.
I like trains and I hate coaches.
Really?
Although when I went to Brighton, so I was like in the Midlands and I was going to Brighton. And the annoying thing is like if you're coming from north of London, you're always going to end up in a train station on the north of the river, innit?
Yeah.
And then to get to the train station south of the river, that is actually
That's the
the
annoying
annoying
part.
bit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
I don't think I don't think there's any. Yeah, there are no trains. No, there might be trains that cross the river. I don't
I
know,
don't know,
but I
man.
think it's just rare. It's just rare.
I hadn't been on one so long, and when I sold the car, I sold it to someone in London, and I was going to like I was on my way to Gatwick that day, so I thought, oh, I'll carry on. I went to Gatwick, dropped my family off because they were going to Morocco, and then I carried on up to London, sold the car, and I was like, okay, how do I get back now? And I got the train,
Yeah,
and that was
yeah.
a nice experience actually. It was sad though, it's bittersweet, man. God, I love that car so much. It was like my first decent car that I purchased on my own. And I remember like driving it up to my dad when I bought it, saying, "Hey, check it out," and he was like, "Oh, very nice." Got a lot of
Rahima.
yeah, I got a lot of that whole period is like during when my dad was ill and stuff. So I've kind of got a big link to it. But this
Mm,
is in no way do I advise this, right? It was a Muslim buyer, and I was very, very upfront with any issues it had with, right? Any issues it had. So every little thing, I was like, "There's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this." Not that they had that many issues, but So I thought I was being 100% clear about it. And then he popped the hood. And he's a car guy, and I'm not really a car guy. And he's like, "Oh, have you seen the
yeah.
oil like that's coming out of the engine here?" And I was like, "Oh, oh no, I haven't actually." And I had to kind of think,
Did
"Oh."
that take like £300 off the price straight
It
away?
it it did take a bit because it was to be fair to him, yeah, like I quickly realized what that could mean because I've got a driveway and I don't have like an oil leak on the driveway. So whatever is happening hasn't really become a huge issue yet, but it probably would have done with
Mm,
time. And I hadn't realized, we made an agreement and it was fine and I was comfortable with that, all things considered. So
mm.
yeah, but I still find myself checking every day, just seeing if it's being because he buys and sells cars. So I check every day. It's like, oh,
Ah, okay.
has he sold it? I don't check. I check like you can check the tax history of a car. So at the moment, last I
Yeah.
checked, it was still untaxed because he's a dealership. But I'm like, oh, has it been taxed yet? Has someone bought it yet? Someone driving around in my baby.
Mm. But why didn't you like save up for the new one and then sell?
I think it's because I just knew that it was just under 100,000 miles. It was like 97. And I knew that as soon as it goes over 100,000, the value just plummet. It just generally does. And also,
Mm,
um, I will save more money not having a car than having one. So, and I can already see that. Like as soon as I've sold the car, like suddenly I'm not paying, tax, insurance, fuel costs, and whatever else. Like I'd use a car a lot, man. I
Yeah,
will.
that'll help you to save up
Oh,
more.
absolutely. Like, yeah, and I live in like in the center of town, so anything I really need and anything I really need to go to. The only thing I used to travel quite far for is to see my mum, who hasn't been here. She's in Morocco, but
Mm,
she's coming back I think, tomorrow or whatever. I'd also
mm.
the kids have got like an Arabic weekend school on the weekends. We've
Mm.
kind of just made that kind of like a day out. We'll go on the bus and go all the way kind of thing.
Mm.
And we used to get halal meat from like a butcher's across town. But fortunately, a halal butcher's just opened up down the road from me, which is great.
Mm.
Turkish, I think.
Mm.
Upper Turkish.
Mashallah.
Mashallah, mashallah.
Yeah. It's actually snowing here, bro. That's why, like you see my face is so bright, it's because outside is all white, so the light's reflecting back
Wow.
onto me. Oh.
Weird weather,
It's
man.
our first
Weird
day
weather.
of like proper snow.
Yeah, like bad. Weird
Yeah,
weather.
I need to take the kids out after this.
All right then. So you said you had some topics, bro, or a topic.
Have you ever bought something from a shop and then you want to return it? You want to get your money back, but you just keep delaying actually going back to that shop to return it, give the receipt, and get the money back. This is what might be happening if you're procrastinating. You've got something that you can really make a big go at. You can achieve big things in your life, but you keep putting it off until one day it'll be too late. If that's you and you're a Muslim man and you've got big ambitions for your life, but you're not taking action on them, you're procrastinating about it, then check out my YouTube channel because every single video there is for people like you to help you. So check out the link in the description and you're going to enjoy those videos if that sounds like you. I have 3 topics.
Whoa.
My first topic, bro, it's one of the audience's favorites.
Oh.
Okay. A little bit, look, it's the type of topic you're going to find it controversial and I won't. So, but I like these topics as like a real life scenario. Okay. So, good friend of mine. Okay. Great guy, tremendous guy, phenomenal. Okay.
Phenomenal.
He's a great guy. Okay. He's younger than me. He's 25. And I kept telling him, like, get married, get married, get married. Finally, when he's
Yeah.
25, 6, he's like, okay, now I'm going to like seriously, consider. So, he would told me about a girl he was talking to, like for marriage. And how do I say it? And I was just this is basically the crux of it. I was very disappointed in
Oh.
in what he was okay with. Okay, because like he's a good guy, bro. He's very wealthy, mashallah. He's a hard worker. He doesn't do any sins, any open sins, any riba, anything, bro. Clean guy. I'm not saying he's a hafid and he leads tarawih. No, but he doesn't do open sins. And he's like, yeah, so I'm speaking to this girl and she's, funnily enough, he's like, I didn't know that I would, get along with this kind of girl, but she's a management consultant and she's like from France, like she lives in France. She grew up in France. Her family's in France, but she's working in Saudi as a management consultant, maybe for one of these, big firms, Deloitte or whatever. And she doesn't wear hijab. And I'm just like, really, bro? Like, why? Like, do you have the same reaction as me? What's your reaction to that?
Oh. Oh. So I need to know a bit more about him. So you say he's on like he's part of your circles and that's kind of you get along and all that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? Or is he like from a different world
Yeah,
completely?
yeah, 100%.
Mm.
No, 100%. Maybe he hasn't. I don't think he's like formally studied any Islam, like maybe at all. But he likes, listens to lectures and Quran and stuff now and then, like more
Yeah.
casual kind of thing.
It's hard to assess, like paint a picture of the entire situation, I guess, just from those descriptions. But I have noticed that this happens a lot with people who are just getting into the whole marriage thing, right? Like getting into looking for someone or
Really? Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
especially when they're young in the journey. So, but 25, I mean, I don't know. It depends on life experience and stuff. Depends on what their expectations are.
Mm.
But you've got to remember,
Mm.
like, look, let's be real. Hair is a element of beauty. Okay, that's why Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has commanded women to hide those elements of themselves, to veil themselves in a particular way, and as a form of beauty, it's also an attractor to men. So it's very easy for a man to get swept up and swept up in the emotion of attraction without necessarily thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, the easiest way of saying it is love is blind, right? And it's blinding. But it's not always love. It just could just be, some sort of attraction that's blinding you to more important factors. And,
Yeah.
with time, hopefully not a lot of time, but maybe with time during the conversation, that element pops up and there's a weighing of scales for that individual to see, is this, what are the reasons or causes for this? And it seems for like a man who hasn't got a
Mm.
beard, for example, because there's a visible symbol of Islam, right? So you might see someone shaving, a sister might see someone shaving and say, "What's your opinion on a beard?" "Oh, I want to, but I'm just not ready yet." And same with a hijab. "I want to, but I'm just not ready yet."
Mm.
Versus,
Yeah. And I think he said that. I think he said she, she's at least at the point where she's like, yeah, I want to wear it, or like she's not saying it's not wrong, or
yeah,
it's not obligatory or whatever. And he said, yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to her about it and see like what the vibe
yeah,
is about it, that kind of thing. But what look, bro, like what shocks me is that like what would my approach be, or what was my approach for me, bro? I would like anybody who's not wearing hijab, at least not, I'm not even talking about correct hijab, not correct hijab. I'm
mm,
just saying their definition of hijab. Yeah. Anyone who's not even doing that, I wouldn't even consider them.
yeah,
Right. And that's not because I'm so perfect. It's just that I don't want to marry somebody who, I'm catching their sins all day when they go
right,
out.
yeah,
And also it just shows, I don't know, their family background or their level of commitment or the culture they come from. Not to mention when I have kids, when I have daughters, and then their mom doesn't even wear hijab, then it's going to be a struggle for them to dress
well, i
properly.
wouldn't
So
i wouldn't expect
it's just a very clear, it's
yeah,
just a very clear sign of being less committed. And unless I'm also have some very clear thing where I'm not committed, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
yes, I might have that, to be honest. I might have that now, but it's just on the inside, not on the outside.
yeah, yeah,
But at least with the clear halal and haram, I'm actively always avoiding the haram.
yeah.
So if someone's standing in front of my face and they're doing that haram, I do think that's a bit different. So I'm quite
Mm.
surprised that somebody would not also have that standard, and
Yeah,
they would be more like, yeah,
the thing is with
we,
men, yeah. I
we'll
mean,
see.
I don't know if
Well,
you've
yeah.
seen this. I mean, you do the front row, and you probably wrote a book on masculinity, so you're going to know this more than many. But men have this like savior mentality sometimes, where they feel like they're going to swoop in and save someone from themselves, right? And that's
Mm,
like an element to it as well. So you'll find like maybe this brother, and I've seen it with, this isn't the first time I've heard of this, of course, this isn't the first time I've heard this whatsoever, but you'll see this whole kind of justification for the interest they're showing because they feel like
mm,
they feel responsible in guiding this person and helping them with their deen. And if they don't do it, then no one else might help them. So they feel like this kind of responsibility and this like knight in shining armor. Oh, you're struggling with hijab, or
mm.
you won't struggle with me, and I'll teach you, and I'll provide for you, and I'll do this for
Yeah,
you. And it's like I'm here to save you kind of
that's
thing,
nice.
which 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 this is a psychological level of it, a deeper level, which they feel like the girl has maybe not received that from maybe their father or another male figure in their family. Because if you're not wearing hijab now, it might be your father wasn't present, or your father was unable to influence you to wear it, or whatever it might be, and you're going to come in now and you're going to,
Mm,
with your newfound love and desire to provide, you're going to fill that gap. And that speaks to a lot of
yeah.
guys. It's not necessarily
Okay.
the correct thing, but I think is definitely an element to it. Because why would
I
you
mean, that's
speak about,
praiseworthy, I think.
well, to some degree, but it's also can be a distractionary technique. It could be like a justification for your own kind of
Yeah.
desire.
No, I think it's nice. It's praiseworthy, but it's just short sighted.
It really does depend, though, doesn't it, on the individual? I've spoken to so many guys. Like at this age, well, I'm 31 now, and you likewise, similar ages. We've dealt with and spoke to so many guys. We've been married long enough as well to see the importance of these things. You know, it's it is important, and for some people, it becomes a really big sticking point. I'm trying to think, like visualize in my head, but I know of narratives where there has been oh yes, I will when we get married. I will do X, Y, Z when we get married. It doesn't have to just be hijab. It could be so many
Yeah.
things that are related to Deen.
Yeah.
But it just, when the comfort comes of, familiarity comes, you've been with each other for long enough, you can also push boundaries with each other. You can also step on each other's toes and maybe challenge each other a bit more. And then it's like,
Mm,
oh no, actually I don't want to. Oh, well, actually I'm not doing it for you. I should be
mm.
doing it for God, or etc. etc. Right? So,
Yeah, these typical thing they say, don't marry potential, and that's true for sure.
but at the same time, some people are in situations where they do have potential, but their environment is not conducive of it, and they do need to be up from a different environment. I'll give you an example. Some women are in very challenging homes, really challenging homes. They want to maybe even wear niqab, for example, but they can't because their family members are very strict on them, or their father is very strict on them. But without them being in that environment, being in a new, fresh environment with a husband in a completely different house, a completely different environment, they now have the freedom, liberation to practice as much as they want. You know, and you see that narrative time and time again. How many sisters are there that want to wear hijab? I'm not talking about this specific sister, but there are many that want to wear hijab, or want to wear a jilbab, or want to wear niqab, for example. But their family, or their father maybe, or whoever, or their brothers, or I don't know, are very oppressive with it, etc. And they just need to
You're
be
saying
taken out of that.
Muslim family whose parents would not let their daughter wear hijab,
100%,
not to wear niqab.
100%, 100%. So many. You've got to be.
So many.
There are.
What do you mean
It's
by
a
so
narrative.
many?
It's a narrative that exists. Think about it. There's Muslims that live in the West. Okay, whether it's beard or
Okay.
whether it's. I mean, men face it less so because they can be a bit more rebellious, and you know. For example, when I grew my
Yeah,
beard,
also
my
beard
dad
doesn't have
wasn't.
to be like a big beard.
No,
Yeah.
but like, and that's the thing. Like, hijab can be one thing, but some women are very, very. They want to wear what they believe is the correct hijab to its fullest, which could be
Yeah.
niqab, right? Um, and I'm speaking from experience, bro. I'm speaking not just from experience, but also from people I've spoken to and things I've seen and discussions I've been had on Twitter. For even like, someone wants to practice, there could even be a revert living under non-Muslims. They could be Muslims, but their family members are so scared for their well-being, whether it's from racism or whether they fear extremism from their own children, that they sort of put a ban on this kind of stuff completely, right? Um,
Right.
and there's also like the
I mean,
third.
I get that with niqab. I get that with niqab. Maybe I get that with like jilbab kind of thing. But just hijab,
No, I've
wow.
seen it,
I've
bro.
not really
I've seen it because some people,
heard of it.
some
Yeah.
parents and families will use a narrative of like, "Oh, we fear for your safety, and someone's going to attack you because they're going to see you Muslim, and there's
Yeah.
so much Islamophobia out, and blah blah blah." And then some
Yeah.
parents use it as like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you don't have to wear that, and you're just being extreme, and what, we're not good enough for you. Are we not good as well? Then are we going to hell as well?" Like, that is
Yeah.
a narrative. They'll start with guilt tripping the kid. I'm not
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I get that.
there are differences. There are differences. I'm just saying that there's such a huge spectrum of reasons. Yes, predominantly the reason is uh, laxity with the dean, right? There, I'm not going to, you know, sugarcoat that. The predominant reason that is out there is that there's laxity, because really and truthfully, in essence, in its real essence, it's not a difficult thing to do. It's not something that you're going to die doing, right? Growing a beard or putting a hijab on. It's the
Mm.
reality. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this deed easy. It's not something that is like so foreign and so, especially living in the West, for example, it's so foreign and so far removed from reality that you're just going to be this big red alert that is going to draw all sorts of attention and negativity by wearing it, and you're going to put threat to your life and like, all these excuses that people give, right? No, we live in 2025. Everybody knows what Islam is in the West. Everybody knows what hijab is in the Muslim world, obviously. There are some instances, I know more so in the past, where there were government crackdowns on hijab. Some countries have that, for example, even in the West. You
Yeah.
know, some countries have that in North Africa. I remember Tunisia, you can wear hijab in a lot of places. Obviously, that's changed now, but that's just
Right.
hijab. You couldn't even wear hijab in schools and stuff at a time. So, yeah, maybe I'm being too charitable, but I am admitting that the majority of cases is just
No, I
laxity,
mean
isn't it?
it. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not. I'm not saying this as like. Although maybe me, I'm not saying this for everyone else. Me, I think if someone's not wearing hijab, it doesn't matter the reason. I wouldn't consider them. Okay. But yes, there could be reasons. But in this case, okay, the sister is living on her own.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
She's going to work every day.
yeah.
She's definitely got freedom, bro. And I, I'm pretty sure she lived in Saudi
Yeah,
Arabia,
that's
bro.
exactly. Depending on the company and the company policy, that could be a challenge. But like, there's things you got to consider. And I think those are other combining factors you're talking about, like the whole management role and living on your own and living in a foreign country, coming from France as well
Yeah, that
to go to
that
Saudi
shows that she's
without
got
having.
the freedom to wear
Possibly.
it.
Yeah, possibly.
Um, so, but yeah, so I just, I just found that strange.
It'd
Not
be
to mention
interesting.
as well, like I know this guy's parents. I know his mom is very traditional. His dad's very traditional, and his mom was never one to like be working.
Mm.
And I know he wants a more traditional wife. But you know what's interesting is what he said was, and maybe this is what you're talking about with like the justification thing, like you get attracted and then you justify it. He's like, yeah, I didn't think I would have chemistry.
Oh,
He
there
used the
you
word
go. Yeah, yeah. Too
chemistry.
much.
I didn't think I would get along,
You know what that means?
get along with somebody.
They've been
Well,
getting.
I'm not saying it like
No,
that,
I'm
but
saying, I'm
I'm just
saying they've
saying
been
that.
chatting too much, bro. Because you wouldn't know what chemistry is unless you've been talking too much. You've been
Well,
talking.
maybe,
Ah,
maybe.
because you
Like,
look, look.
I don't want to assume that. But
I remember, bro, speaking to guys, right, that would be speaking to people for marriage, and they'd just be
you had chemistry
speaking.
with guys.
No, you know what I mean, like discussing their marriage journey,
Yes.
whatever that
Yeah.
might
Go on.
be. But bro, like
Yeah.
they're like fall in love, like they're falling in love. It's like, hey, you got to treat
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
with some element of like a business contract, right? You need to, and look, I'm not saying that those kind of things. I haven't been victim to those kind of things in my marriage journey initially, right? But you have to have a certain level of maturity at some point when you're actually serious about this and treat it like you're saying, like, okay, what are the pros and cons? What are the outcomes? What does a long term future look like? What are my needs and wants? What are their needs and wants? If you were to ask your friend, okay, let's put that to the side. What are the objective qualities that will benefit you? Not just qualities like the the touchy feely flipping chemistry nonsense. I'm talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
actual
Yeah.
logical, you know,
Yeah. What's
uh,
she bringing to the table on
yeah, but
paper?
like things
You
that
know.
you need in your life in terms of factors that you are aiming
Yeah.
for, goals that you're trying to achieve.
Things that you value today, but then also in 10 years
For
and 20 years.
example, like, a lot of people have conditions like, okay, I need my wife to be able to speak Arabic because I want an Arabic speaking household. I also have an
Yeah.
intention to move to
Yeah.
such and
That's
such
totally.
country. Are they open to doing that? I also have this expectation
Yeah.
that I'm going to work and they're going to do this, or are they going to do this and I'm going to do that? Whatever. Like these
Yeah.
objective
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
If you're finding someone that maybe you've got such unique needs. For example, one of my unique needs was moving to Tunisia one day, and this is what Tunisia looks like, and it's not Hammamet or Nebel or these very touristic places. It's like the sticks, and this is so that was always like something I had to translate. I had to translate that over, be
But
very
in
transparent.
return, I will provide you with the dong.
uh, yeah, well, this is it though. It's a reality, isn't it? Like if
Yeah.
you had a
Yeah.
responsibility that you had to adhere to, it could be something else. It could be like, right, I have a mother that's on her own, and I need to see her 3 times a week, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
your understanding? They might have a different responsibility that clashes. They might have like a sick father, for example, that they have to see all the time, and it's in a different country, or like these are real conversations you have to have because these are the things that are going to put
Yeah.
the biggest
Exactly. Yeah.
strain on the marriage.
Yeah.
Honestly, the biggest
Yeah.
strain
These
is
are like non-negotiables.
yeah,
Yeah.
these are the biggest things. So if he's got these very unique needs and he's found someone that actually just fits perfectly with those needs, but they've got this
Uh,
thing, I'd say, okay, I
yeah. Then
understand.
you could
I
compromise
understand
something.
why.
Yeah.
I understand why.
Yeah.
But if you're
But most people
saying,
don't have such unique
yeah,
needs.
chemistry, bro, this idea of chemistry, I think you can have chemistry with most people, really, if you're just a decent person. Yes, some people you don't get
This is
along
what I
with.
told him. I said, bro, you cannot be generally attracted to someone. You agree to marry them. You have a wedding. You live with them for weeks, months, years, and then you don't have chemistry.
Well,
I'm like,
it's
no,
it's
don't
just
worry about chemistry, man.
yeah.
Bro, I told you, I think I said this on the podcast before. I've got a friend. He got a second wife. They do not have a language in common. They've
Mate,
been married now for like a year or two, and they don't speak the same language.
wow, that's incredible.
And I
You-
said, bro, what the hell do you do?
yeah.
He said, no, she's learning Arabic. I don't think she speaks Arabic until today. He's like, we use Google Translate. He said it stops us from arguing because everything has to be through Google Translate.
There are things like that I value. Like, I've been married for what, 7, 8 years now, and I remember one thing I really wanted was someone who'd been through a similar kind of journey as I've been. Um, and I found that a lot with my wife. I found that she'd lived in Algeria for a little bit. I'd lived in Tunisia for a little bit. We've had that whole kind of in retrospect, I wasn't without my parents for that long, but when you're young, it feels like forever. So she had the similar kind of thing. We're kind of around the same age. I mean, I'm older, but there is a crossover in even our experiences of pop culture, for example, or just culture in general, or life events. There are some things I mentioned, and she'd be like, "I was too young. I don't know what you're talking about," and I'm like, "Oh." But I remember these were factors that made me lean towards marrying someone, or finding someone from England, than marrying someone from Tunisia, for example, or from Morocco, like straight from back home, as it were, because that is always an option for some people. And I remember having this fear, like there will be a big clash if I was to marry someone from back home, especially when I was young, because I just thought, I did consider it at one point, but then I just thought, oh, I'm not North African enough, and might not be quote unquote English enough, and there's going to be a clash there. And I have seen that for some people. So yeah, I do get the chemistry aspect. I do value that. I think when you have a lot of things in common anyway, you know, you kind of
Yeah,
find things
exactly.
to relate on. And Islam is always
Yeah.
going to be the biggest factor of those things. If you come from the same understanding of Islam, uh, as in like you've got the same kind of ambitions, the same kind of values, Islamic values, the same kind of really important stuff that you want to stay away from in terms of Islamically, like sins you want to keep away from, but also things that you really value for your children or for your family, etc. You're going to find so many things relevant there.
Exactly, and this is why it shocks me that someone would compromise something like that, because, like you said, the biggest thing that you want to have in common is your commitment to Islam and to Allah,
It's
right? That's
yeah,
the biggest thing that would hold you together. So then, if one of the parties, let's swap it around just for variety. Let's say the sister's very committed, and then the man comes to propose to her, and by the way, he's got ribawi loans and stuff, and not is he just he's not got a fatwa for that. He's just like, yeah, it's not that bad, is it? And like stuff like that. That's a complete clash of priorities in
mm,
life or whatever.
mm. you know,
So it's
it,
surprising
it
that someone would consider that.
it
But
also affects obviously, no doubt, it affects the longevity of a marriage because when when two people are at a particular level, when one wants to remain at one level and the other wants to get even more serious, there becomes a huge like gulf between them. And I've seen that a lot. Like I know someone who, when he got married, he wasn't necessarily the most practicing, possibly at that time, but he was Muslim and he married, I think, maybe a Christian girl or something of that sort. Right? I'm using extremes here because just to demonstrate. But I think
yeah,
after they had children, he suddenly, like, the world kind of changed for him and he really wanted to get way more serious. But his partner, his wife, isn't necessarily on that same kind of spectrum, especially when it
yeah,
comes to Islam. So there's always like this huge gulf and a huge arguments and huge divide, etc. So, and it happens a lot. I've seen that a lot. You see that a lot with a lot of North Africans from the older generation that have come over here, maybe marry someone who's from England, who isn't Muslim but aspires to be maybe one day. And then they also associate Islam with you, not with itself. So any sins that you commit or any bad things that you've got, oh, that's
that's
what
true.
Islam
That's
is,
true.
right? And this could
I've
happen
seen that.
here.
Yeah.
Like, let's say these two get married hypothetically. You know, your bad things, your bad, what's the word, characteristics, which we all have and we all can work on,
Yeah.
but sometimes that will get links to, oh, you're meant to be this pious practicing one, and you're like this. Oh, what do you mean I have to do this? And what do you mean I have to do that? Is that from you? Is that from Islam? And oh no, I believe Islam is like this, and I believe Islam can be this, and trying to liberate it a bit more, and that can create clashes. Look, there's no longevity without that kind of
100%.
agreement. There is zero longevity. It's
Yeah.
so easy to fall for the infatuation element. It's so easy, especially someone. Let's say this 25-year-old guy. 25 is a long time to go without getting married or speaking to women about marriage or speaking to women in general in this kind of arena. It's think about it. Let's assume that he's somebody who's kept himself chaste and away from women for 25 years. But he's been to schools, he's been around women, he's been around other guys that have had girlfriends and girls have had boyfriends, and people are getting married young and all this stuff. And there's this hunger growing in this individual. because I've seen it before, of a hunger-grown individual who just longs for a relationship and longs for companionship and longs for marriage and longs for, female company. And finally, he's ready. He's got all his ducks in a row, ready to get married. The first girl that speaks to him, he will be infatuated with, hands down. There is no
Mm.
logic to your conversation. You're not thinking. You're not. I
Yeah.
mean, you're like Iron Man. I mean, when you got married, you knew what you wanted. You had it all planned out, right? None of that messing about. But the average guy struggles with this. The average guy, as soon as a woman talks to him, he'll think, "That's it. She's the one.
Mm.
We have so much chemistry." Like,
No,
how
I
can?
think I did have that, bro. I did have that, but you got to remember, I wanted to get married since I was like 18.
Yeah.
And then I got married when I was 27. So I had a lot of time to
Damn.
kind of think about it and mature and whatever,
Yeah. Through like you know what? I spoke to a brother once, and I don't know how deep I want to get into this, but essentially, he started his marriage journey speaking to someone. It didn't work out. The guy
Yeah.
just couldn't get over it. Heartbroken forever. It was just,
Mm.
but it wasn't anything beyond a a conversation with Welly involvement, so chaperoned conversation. So it wasn't even like they had privacy or. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Like the whole journey, the whole marriage conversation was chaperoned. The Wali was in like a WhatsApp group or
Mm.
whatever, so it was always present. And then
No pillow talk.
no pillow talk,
Mm.
no nothing, right? And even I don't even remember. I don't think if they had meetings or anything. They might have not even had meetings. They might have only ever been digital. The guy was broken, bro. Never recover from that. Always goes on about it.
Mm.
It's like, come on, man.
Interesting.
So that just shows you.
How does that happen? That's shocking. You went to school and you studied English, science, you studied maths. Then you went to university, studied engineering, economics, maybe computer science. But where along the line do you ever learn about how to be a man of character, how to be a man that takes action, how to have a resilient mindset, and to build yourself to become a man that you're proud of, especially the Islamic way? Because a lot of men, when they want to learn how should a man act in this situation, especially in 2025, they will either end up going left side to the feminism or right side to the red pill. Well, I wrote a book specifically that cuts through both of those, and it just goes to the source, to Islam, to show you how to be a man of character according to Islam. I've got a free chapter for you in the description. Click that link, check it out, and if you like it, you can get the whole book.
It's certain levels of perceived chemistry, certain levels of desire. I mean, men are weaker than they'd like to think they are a lot of the time. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to
Yeah.
these examples.
How
I
old was he?
don't know, man, 20, but maybe around the same age you were talking about, like 22, 23 at the time, maybe something like that. I can't
Okay,
remember.
that's a little bit young.
But the factor
This is,
there,
by the way, one of the reasons that I'm not one of those people that like, as soon as you turn whatever 18, get married,
really,
bro,
yeah,
get married.
yeah,
I'm not actually like that. I'm like, it depends,
it's
obviously, if there's, sins that are happening or whatever. But if possible,
yeah,
just make sure you're mature. Now, the big problem is that some people mature at age 30. Okay.
yeah,
But that's not out of random, right? That's
yeah,
because of the way you're living that you take so long to mature. So if that's what I think about for my sons, for example, my job is not to delay him getting married until he's mature. My job is to make sure he is mature by 18 or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I
Well,
think that's the important factor of having a parent, a father in the picture. I'm trying to think when I asked my dad about my wife, like that was the first person I wanted to speak to my dad about and get married, etc.
mm,
I'm trying to think. His response was never that I was too young. How old was I? I must have been 22, 23. I got married at 24, maybe. I can't remember. Around that age. His response wasn't I was too young. His response that I hadn't finished my studies yet or something like that. I was still at uni. But it wasn't like a big factor. He was more concerned that maybe my wife was too young, and she was what 19, 20 at the time. 19, I think. Yeah. So actually, I think we spoke about getting married at 18, and she turned 19 when we got married. So it was like a year process. Um, so his concern was like, you're still at uni, and she's uh, Like, why would they let their daughter marry you if you're still at uni? Like, you're not even got a full-time career job or whatever. I was like, hey, Dad, it is what it is. You know, that's for them. That's for them to decide, innit? I was open about,
those
everything.
ones are dodgy, man. It's
Yeah.
like if you do like in this circumstance, it's like, oh, there's a deficiency in the woman because they're willing to let her go to this
Nah,
kind of guy.
nah. He was. I don't. Well, hopefully that's not what he thought. He never really translated that. I think he was. He was probably
Oh, okay.
concerned about me being too young and inability to provide. But
Mm.
it's funny because obviously, first time I met my wife and met my family, about my in-laws, I met them with all my family as well. Like, I'd never gone on my own and then met them and then brought my family. Like, we all went together first time round. And it was nice that I did that. And I met her whole family before I met her, which was also nice that I did that. Very intimidating meeting, and a huge Algerian family. Like, everyone was there, bro. It wasn't just like her immediate family. Like, all our uncles were there, all our cousins were there. It was a big thing. um, so I was going to say, man, I lost my train of thought there. But subhanallah, la ilaha illallah, what was I going to say? Yeah, that's what it was. After their initial meeting went very well, and they seemed eager and to progress and stuff. I remember my dad saying to me in the car on the way home, he's like, "Oh, I think they've like hit a jackpot." He was like making it out as if I was so amazing that that's why they were willing to go ahead. And he's like, "Oh, they've got a jackpot with you, haven't they?" I was like, "I don't know, Dad. I think it's just it's what it is." But he must have been like, I think a lot of my dad's apprehensions was this. He was also new to this whole thing as well. Do you understand? I was his eldest. He's never done anything like this before for
Mm.
anyone, really. And
Right.
I think his initial apprehensions was he's just like absolute fear of getting like doing it, messing this up, being embarrassed or whatever. There was even like, I don't know if you got it in your culture. I'm sure you do. There's like things you say traditionally when you like go to tukhtob, when you go to ask for someone's hand, and it's like "جيناك بالحساب والمساب" or something. I don't know what it is. Some sort of saying that they say.
Mm.
I remember apparently meant to say it like, after you've sat down, introduced each other and stuff, and then you kind of say, "Oh, this is why we're here," kind of make it known.
Yeah. Oh.
We knocked on the door before my dad even said hello. He just said that. And I remember my father-in-law like laughing so much because he was like, "Oh, really keen." Just, so there's a learning experience for even the Elise, bro. There's a learning experience for even
That's
the,
true, by the way.
that's what I'm talking about when you said what you would want for your son. I was thinking, oh, yeah, like what perspective? And you say like, oh, a lot of people don't mature until such and such age. Well, a lot of adults are just pretending to be adults because we also don't know. Like our kids look at us as adults, right? And they think we know it all. But subhanAllah, like Suleiman's going to be 8 years old soon. Before you know it, guy's going to be a teenager. I'm going to still be treating him like he's an 8-year-old or whatever. So we don't know when. It's hard to know when someone is going to be really ready. And a lot of the time, it is marriage itself that makes them the man they need to be. It's very difficult to
100%.
get someone ready for marriage and say, "Oh, you're responsible now." And likewise, for a woman to be a wife, there are certain factors they can learn. There's certain factors that they can display in their own household before they get married that will kind of signal that. I think maybe similarly for men, are they helping out more? Are they, making sure all the chores and all the tasks are done, or do they have to still be told, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
So those elements I think are very important. I think your friend is
Yeah.
definitely seeing that independence as a sign of maturity. I don't know. I mean, what's his maturity level? Is he at home? Is he living with his family, or is he?
Bro, he's without like giving too many details.
Yeah,
He's a very, very mature person for his
yeah.
age. Like he was like the fact that we have such an age gap and we're good friends, that shows like how mature he is.
Mm,
And I think I first met him when he was 18 and I was like 26 or something like that. Like there was a big age gap, but he's mature, bro. And he's like run big businesses, big teams. And he actually didn't go uni or anything.
mm.
So he's just been that geek working on business his whole life. And he's very mature, mashallah. He's got a lot of experience in life in that sense, but
Mm.
I don't know, maybe like what you're saying, you could be mature as you like in those areas, but
Yeah.
if you not,
You got a weak heart. You got a weak
you
heart.
know,
You know, another
Yeah,
thing.
or if
This
you're not
I don't want to
experienced
offend
with women,
anyone, but
yeah.
I don't want to offend anyone by saying this, but someone will be offended. But it is what it is. We're all adults. A woman that is a bit more serious about Islam may not necessarily be as chatty, and that way you may not
Yeah.
interpret the chemistry that you're looking for. So, for example, how if you've got a
100%.
yeah, if you've got a welly, and but what I'm saying by that is that a woman who isn't wearing hijab and is a bit more lax might be a bit more liberal with her conversation and a bit more,
And then you think you've got better chemistry with
flirtatious
her because
even.
of that.
Yeah, it might
Yeah.
there's room for flirtation, which there wouldn't necessarily be
Yeah.
there if Welly was present in that conversation. A girl
Yeah.
that's well
Yeah.
protected, well looked after, well wellied, well protected by wellies, will have those barriers of
Yeah.
entry, so to speak, to a conversation that it will give you that freedom. Now it depends how flexible the welly is. When I was a welly for my sister, we did the whole WhatsApp group thing. And I didn't, bro, I'm not going to read all the messages. I'll be honest with you. But it's just that I'm there and I could at any moment is enough of a fear. Like sometimes I flick through. I used to flick through. Yeah. But
Marked as red.
you wake up and there's like 200 messages. You got time to read all that. But, there's an element there. You're not going to, I would have a look and stuff, but it's just an
I think
element.
WhatsApp actually would encourage, women to speak a lot more, isn't it, than face to
Mm,
face,
mm.
which could be a positive or negative thing, to be honest,
It's the
because some girls are so shy
yeah.
that once they meet a prospect, they don't say a word, like they can't
Mm.
say anything,
It's too
right?
much. Yeah, it's too much. It's like the old days. Maybe they used to write letters to each other. So, I'll deliver this letter to my potential.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's why the Prophet ﷺ, like said that the silence of a girl is her approval when it
Mm.
comes to marriage.
Mm. Yeah,
You know,
the dynamics are so different though for certain cultures and certain societies. You have got cultures and societies even today where it's very much okay. You're going to marry so and so's daughter. She's in agreement. You're in agreement. Yes, I'm in agreement. I've seen her before. That's it. I always hear stories about how my granddad married my grandmother, Moroccan side, and apparently he was just told about her. She's this so and so's daughter. And she's working in this field. I think he was riding a horse. He saw her working in the field. He was like, okay, and that was it. He just agreed. He went back and agreed, and that was it. My other my on my dad's side, I think it was. I think my granddad may have already been married before, and then I can't remember why he separated or whatever. Well, I could be wrong about that completely, but he went to ask for my grandmother's hand in marriage. He saw her in like this festival, right? And he went to her and her mum or her and her dad and offered her sweets. And she was so shy. She was like, "No, get away from me! Like you're a strange man. I don't want anything from you." And then she didn't realize that he was coming that same day to ask for her hand in marriage. And I think she was so young at the time. I don't know how young she was, but she was so like frazzled by the whole thing. But it
yeah,
shows that it works because they were married until that. Obviously, my granddad died first, and she died a few years ago. But they were married for life. SubhanAllah,
right.
had 3 kids, and there's different ways of it working for different people. So
Yeah, I
even
think that actually, what, you can't get mixed up with this stuff. Yeah, so that some people with their, how do you say it, their wish to return to the past ways,
yeah,
they might want to do that.
yeah.
However, you just got to look at the context. The reason that works, and it worked, and it still works in some circumstances, is because, I mean, you're just from the exact same culture.
Yeah,
There's not
100%.
probably not one. There's not one value or expectation that you're going to
100%.
differ on.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay,
Yeah,
and these are the big things that cause a marriage to fail or
yeah.
succeed: is having the same expectations, the same, roles, the same idea of roles,
And
etc., same values, etc.
reputation own.
But today, yeah, and stuff like that. But today, bro, really, like,
It's not.
pick any Muslim country, and you will have definitely people that have different values,
Yeah,
different expectations, different. So that's why, even whatever, pick your Muslim country, even people in those countries now, they kind of need to do more discussing and understanding each other's point of view
100%.
before making the decision, right?
100%.
Otherwise, you end up with, oh, you want this, you expect that. and it could go into any weird
Yeah, I
direction.
mean,
You know,
look,
some men these days are saying, "I want my wife to provide as well because, you know, I don't want that burden. It's too hard." And it is like sometimes really hard, like in Algeria, to provide on one salary. But al muhim, I'm just saying people have different
there's so
expectations.
many vast differences, man, that are so huge that, you know, when you're
Mm.
young, you know, Muslim Twitter, 18 years old, yeah, there should be, you know, one ummah and we should all be free to marry each other. And our parents are so strict on us, and why won't they let us, you know, into what's the term? I don't want to say race mix. That sounds really weird.
Interracial.
In
I
marriages
don't
or
know.
whatever.
Yeah, there is some sort.
There is that discussion, you know. I remember even me being part of that discussion. And when you're older, you're like, yeah, that
Oh,
was
oh.
stupid. But I'm really glad and happy, and couldn't be happy with my wife and the decisions I made. And you know, actually, you commented on this recently on Twitter because someone was saying like how strict parents are and how they shouldn't be like that. And I wrote something like, oh, you know, I had this like realization gift. You know, when you have like a realization, I was like, oh, this was me when I got married to my wife, who's similar culture and background, and now I understood why my dad was such a big proponent of doing so, because oh,
Mm.
it's nice. We're not exactly the same, obviously, because I'm from Tunisia, Morocco, but there's so much. I mean, we're all one region. There's so much related. There's so much similarities that it's actually just really nice discovering those little things about each other, but also settling on so many truths that we both share, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah. It's like you're
easy, and
building
it's
a
so
building.
yeah,
You want the building that you build it on has to be flat.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you have to have at least that common ground. Once that's flat, then you can build
Yeah.
whatever wonky shaped
Oh,
building you like.
100%. Like, oh, what did you used to do for Eid? Oh, we used to you do this and this. Oh, wow, wow, me too. We used to do this and this. Or like the other day, like I got it's really nice actually. I got all the VHS tapes from my mum's house, so all the old home movies. We haven't seen them in years, and I got them digitized. And
Mm.
some guy basically put them on a USB stick, and we got to watch them
You're
all
so
again.
nostalgic, bro.
Oh, bro, I'm crazy nostalgic. It's problematic sometimes. I get stuck in the past. But like, there's videos there from when I was like 2 years old, you know, 1 years old, and you see like sprinkles of family culture, like so and so's wedding, my auntie's wedding, or this wedding, whatever. And my kids are watching me at the same age. It's crazy, and like just seeing my wife's recognition of, you know, the cultural similarities and stuff, and it's just it's great. It's phenomenal. I love it. I absolutely love it. On that note as well, there's like video of me on my like 11th birthday or something. Yeah, I did birthdays when I was younger, but my behavior is just exactly like Suleiman, to the point that anything I criticize Suleiman for, I'm like, like I've really started hesitating criticizing him for certain things, because I've noticed in that video, it's like to a T, bro. His behavior is just exactly like I was, and I've completely forgotten that's how I
You gotta
was.
wonder where it comes from, bro.
Oh, bro, if you've got access to anything like that, I don't know, like you
Mm.
might do, you might not, but even mannerisms, little mannerisms, I maybe still do them now, but little mannerisms I was doing there at 11 years old, he's got them at 8, and obviously he will carry them forward.
Where does that come from? How is it possible? Because you might not do those things now. You did them 20 years ago, right? So how is it that you've passed it on to him? It's wild, isn't it?
It's, you know, there's certain like speech inflections which probably I've still got, but also like I can't explain it. Just certain things I'm doing with my hands, or certain mannerisms, or certain jokes I'm making, or it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and it could be consolidated with the compounded. Sorry, the word I wanted to use, compounded by the fact that maybe there's visual similarities in our faces, and I think that also adds an element
Mm.
to it, and that would add an element to you and your
Yeah.
kids. So yeah, I
Mm.
remember literally my wife turned to me and she goes, "You've got no right to say anything to him now after I've seen that." And I was like, fair play. Honestly, I was like, fair play, I hold my hands up. But it's just little things, you know, childish jokes that kids might make and stuff like that. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm basically the same. So yeah, going back to the issue at hand, yeah, man, there is too much to
What about this, bro?
go on.
What about this thing that people say, like, why is it okay? The one reason for having maybe what you would consider like low standards when it comes to the religious practice of potential husband wife. One reason is like you said, the desire, the attraction, whatever, right? Another reason that people use is like one way they express this is like, I need to have the right halal haram ratio.
Oh, I
You
hate
know what I'm
that.
talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah,
So basically, for some reason, they're scared that they're going to marry someone who's going to be more serious about Islam than them.
yeah.
And what are they going to do? They're going to like compel them to be a certain way, or try and
Mm,
control them. Is that
mm.
the right way of explaining it?
You know, I understand, but I hate it. I hate that that's a thing, like discussion that exists. You know, like look, as a guy, you kind of want to be the leader of that of a family, right? So you kind of want
Yeah.
to, whatever the level of religiosity the sister is going to be, you kind of want them to either be the same or maybe needing a little bit of support on certain aspects. And I think that's like the
Mm.
sweet spot for a lot of guys. But some guys might have, they might stumble into discussing with someone who is clearly above their level. You know,
Yeah.
it could be that, oh,
Is that a
this,
problem?
well, you know what? I'm not a hafid of the Quran. But if I was in a marriage discussion and the sister was like a hafid of the Quran, I would first of all be like, wow, that's amazing. But then I'd be like, am I good enough? Is this, would that be intimidating for me? And then I'd be interested to see their reaction. Like, do they feel like, are they saying, oh yeah, I don't mind, all in your own time? Or, yeah, you should really get on it. Like, I'll help you. Like a sister saying that to her potential husband.
Mm.
Like, there's a difference.
Okay.
You really need to get on it. I'll help you.
Yes.
Like, how do you take that as a man? Do you take that as, you know what, this is a brilliant opportunity. I really want to learn. Or do you take it as a, oh, is she going to be on my case? you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm not, look, being a half of the Quran is incredible. And actually, yeah, the real reality is we should take any opportunity of support we have to reach that goal. But men also have an ego problem. I mean, it's not always a problem, but sometimes it is a problem. And that is a
Mm.
discussion. Like, I think women are more comfortable being led in these arenas. And I think that's what goes back to what we were saying earlier about, oh, the savior mentality. I'll help you wear hijab. I'll help you. I'll create the environment for you, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. But yeah, there's also the challenges of like understandings of Islam. What does Islam mean to you? What is your aqidah? Or what is
Yeah.
your manhaj, or whatever you want to call it?
Well, yeah. I think that's a bit different, though. That's like more difference of opinion versus,
It
this
can
is what
be
what I'm talking about is
it can be
a clear
levels of that as
difference
well, though,
in,
bro. It can be levels as well. Like, you could have
yeah,
someone
like
who
what?
isn't wearing hijab, but they're leaning towards more
Oh,
liberal understandings of Islam. They're very ambitious about Islam, but their understanding is only
oh,
goes so far, and they believe that
yeah.
certain things aren't obligatory.
So it's like my hijab is saving the
Yeah.
whales. That's my hijab. Let's talk about stereotype.
well, well, you understand what I mean. Like, it's like, yeah, like I'm a
Yeah,
very
yeah.
spiritual and deep person,
I
but
mean,
these certain
obviously, that's not
things,
going to work.
well, you don't know what
Mm.
this person is. You're having the chemistry, but I haven't heard anything concrete about beliefs and understandings of what's important. Like, when you say to this girl, what's your understanding of hijab? She might aspire to wear it one day, but she might not believe or think it's necessary. You know, everyone aspires to be better, of
Yeah, yeah,
course. Everyone might say, yeah, of course I want to be a better Muslim. But am I
yeah,
sinning for not wearing it? Oh, I don't know. That's another discussion.
yeah, 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 yeah. I think, I think what you said about the way they react to the difference is a big point, actually. So, yeah, this is a good example, especially when if the man has not memorized the Quran and the woman has memorized the Quran. Me, I don't think any man should have an issue with that. He should be happy with that,
Yeah.
right? Because also, there's not only one way to worship Allah, alhamdulillah. Like, there are so many ways you can excel and different arenas you can excel in.
Yeah.
Your wife could have memorized the Quran, but you could be more knowledgeable, or you could been volunteering your whole life, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? It's not a competition in that sense. It's more just like, deep down, is your commitment there? Even if you haven't fully expressed that commitment yet, you're still young, right? You have time to express it. But fundamentally, in one area of the religion of memorizing the Quran, I don't think that there's an issue there, right? But then, yes, if I can understand, if you feel like this person you're going to marry is going to try and control you or compel you to change, that is a bit scary, a bit
Yeah.
intimidating. Yeah. Or like, let's say in a different arena, let's say the woman is very knowledgeable in the deen, in fiqh, and all these things, and then you get this feeling that not only does she know more than you, but she's gonna be like you're teaching you
Yeah.
without you asking her to teach you, right? Then that would like maybe mess up the dynamic of it, right? So, so I get that, but I think generally, like in the case of my friend, for example, like he didn't say this, but I just thought maybe this could be part of his thinking that, yeah, I'm not so knowledgeable. I'm not like the type that does qiyam al-layl. So therefore, it's fine if I marry someone, maybe he doesn't wear hijab or whatever. If he was thinking that way, I would just be like, no, man, like you're not doing like these outward sins. So you should also marry someone who's not doing outward sins.
Yeah.
And on these small things, like she memorized 5 juz more than you. That's small. Like you should want someone who's gonna like be striving
There's
as well.
additional elements to that, I don't want to assume too badly of people, but I know there's people that don't wear hijab, but they do pray their 5 daily prayers. But there are also there's some people that I
Yeah.
know like that are very lax with it. They don't pray them on time. They'll pray them when they can, and that can add to it. So, for example,
Yeah.
let's put this into the real world. This sister doesn't wear hijab, but she works at
Mm.
such and such company on her own. Does she take her hijab with her and then pray her prayers on time when they come in, go to a room and a prayer room and pray, and then take the hijab off and walk out and carry on? Or does she then stack up her prayers to pray at home after her shift? Like these are other elements because one connects to another. If you're putting it on during the times that you need to pray, maybe you work from home or whatever. I don't know. It's convenient for you, but what does that look like in the real world? Because that also,
Yeah. I mean,
what's
your
more
salah
important?
is huge, man.
Exactly. That's another thing. What is more important? Is it the hijab or is it the salah? If she's praying on time, putting it on, whatever. Another thing, we said earlier about reactions. I just don't have much faith in anyone's reactions when it comes to marriage meetings. Like a lot of the time, when it comes to important questions, you just can't believe people fully based on their reactions or what they say, whether it's their aspirations or whatever. Like there are some objective truths that can be discussed, such as, I want this in life, etc. And do you agree or do you not? And you can discuss it. But there is a lot of like yes man and yes woman behavior when it comes to,
And
especially
that's why
if
you have to
there's
ask these special questions
yeah,
that
but if
don't have
there's
a right or wrong
chemistry,
answer.
bro, there's chemistry. All you want to
Yeah.
do is please, all you want to do is be the guy or the girl. So yeah,
Right.
whatever you want, yeah, we'll make it happen. Oh,
Just
you
come
want?
into that meeting and say, so what's your favorite song?
Oh yeah, that was a good technique, wasn't it? Yeah, it could be anything, man. I want to move to Antarctica one day and save the penguins. Oh yeah, we'll make that work. Let's do it. That sounds amazing. I'd love to be with you and do that. That sounds so
Yeah.
good. And then in reality, it's like, what, you actually want me to leave my family and go save penguins? Yeah,
Mm.
I told you
Yeah.
about this when we got married.
Yeah.
No, no, I thought you were joking. But
Mm.
you promised me.
Mm.
And
That's why
obviously
I
things
like,
change, but
you know, I like not selling yourself. It's better to undersell, to just be like, look, marrying me is gonna suck.
it's
And see if still goes for it.
it's a balancing act. It's just very strange to me. I mean, I don't know what the dynamic is. Is this woman like she the decision maker in this marriage thing, or does she have to go and refer back to her family about any of this at all? Is she the type of woman to say, speak to my dad, or is she the type of woman to say, hey, dad, guess what? I'm going to marry this guy. Do you want to meet him? Kind of thing. Like
Mm.
that's a dynamic
The
as well.
vibe that I got was that I think a lot of people are like this. So they're quite traditional. Their family's quite traditional, but it doesn't mean they're that practicing of the acts of worship fully.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
So, but deep down, it's like they come from a traditional family, and so they're kind of comfortable with a lot of the traditional dynamics.
yeah,
But a lot of people, a lot of people's parents, a lot of people's families, they're not that strict with certain things, with stuff that's very, very common, like music or birthdays or
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
lot of this stuff,
yeah, yeah,
man.
yeah.
Free mixing, bro. Go to the Arab world. Apart from certain countries, there's a lot of free mixing that goes on, and it's in that society. That's not like liberal. That's just normal. It's
Yeah,
certainly not haram.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
very
yeah.
normal.
There's no hishma, but
So
there's hishma for other things, you know. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
So in the
can't,
end, bro, I think a really good angle of picking a wife is like, okay, she's like this now. Let's assume she kind of stayed around this way. Now I'm married, and we got 2 kids. The kids, they're starting to speak. They understand. We're teaching them what's right and wrong. Am I comfortable with this woman? In that context, am I still comfortable with her? Does the chemistry matter now? Does the fact that she's a 7 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10, does that matter now? So how much does it matter? I think that's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's interesting. It can go either way, can't it? A woman can really, anyone can really excel in a marriage environment when they're separated from any kind of outside influence, any pressures from family members or whatever. They can really excel, and some can really not deteriorate necessarily, but the deterioration comes from the clashes that come between you as a couple. Um,
Mm.
Although some can deteriorate, actually, even then. I've heard some stories, man. Like the sisters that could be. I speak about sisters because I haven't spoken to sisters about men all the time necessarily, have I? Um, but there's, I've known people that got married and then everything's all good on paper, everything makes sense, and very religious or whatever, and then like you just
Mm.
get blindsided by some wildness comes out of nowhere. I've heard of stories, bro. I've spoken to people who've they've been at work or they've left town or something for a trip, and their wife has gone on holiday on her own without telling them to some next place,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
like they've had an argument with their missus, and they're spending time apart, and they found out that their missus has started doing drugs or something, even though she's religious and wearing hijab and jilbab and all this stuff, like smoking weed or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. Like something's come out of somewhere that you just couldn't even imagine has happened.
Yeah.
You just get absolutely blindsided by it. Honestly,
You
that
can't blame you can't blame yourself on that. As long as you did istikhara, you
yeah, yeah,
followed the right,
absolutely,
you look for someone with certain
yeah.
values, then it just is what it is after that. That's the
Those
qadr, and you try and accept that.
Yeah, I need to preface those things exist, but don't cripple your decisions on those kind of things. Like those are real outliers that can just happen, and there's nothing you could have done, and there's no point
Mm.
digging too much for things like that you're never going to find. But some people cripple their prospects at marriage by being too selective and too picky. I've spoken to some really good brothers,
Yeah.
really really good brothers that are trying to get married, and the pickiness is just too much. It's like, but what if? Oh, but there's this, and what if this happens, and then what if that happens, and then what? It's like, shut up. Just you need to at some point
Mm.
you need to tie your cabin and just have tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because there's always going to be something that comes up, or multiple things that come up in a marriage, and you just got to deal with them as they come. The broad
Yeah.
strokes you deal with, the broad strokes you kind of make decisions about. There's these broad
Yeah.
decisions that you can make. But the nitty gritty, minor, I say minor, but smaller issues that can sometimes become huge. You can't always sieve them out. You can't always find those little nuggets in a conversation. A lot of things you're not going to know until you're living together. You know, for example,
100%. I
why
mean,
do you leave the toilet?
sometimes I think
Why do you leave
about
the toilet seat up?
mm,
you know, why do you put the toilet seat down?
that's nothing.
That's a minor issue, but you wouldn't
Yeah.
ask someone that in a marriage meeting, would you? There's loads of
No,
little things.
no.
There's loads of little things that could be really petty for you,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't know.
Yeah. But I guess the little things, this is the
Can I just say?
overall
Can I just
point
say?
is like,
Sorry, before
yeah,
anyone thinks
yeah.
it's me who used to leave the toilet seat up. That was a bad habit I had. Right, not my wife. My wife's very clean and hygienic. It's my fault. I need to learn.
Okay. I didn't know you were talking about either of you.
No, no, no. But I don't want anyone thinking that I'm throwing shade or anything.
Yeah, I heard about someone who's having slight issues with their marriage, and the issues were very small issues. The actual issue was that the communication wasn't good enough to sort it out, you know.
Mm,
Um, and communication is something you can improve on. But what if somebody just what they consider to be um, good manners, good character, good, respectful, what if they don't even have that like at all?
yeah,
Okay, well that's the thing you need to then worry about when deciding to get married. But then the little things, you just try and marry someone that you feel like you can work through the small
yeah.
things with them, because the small things will come up. Um,
They're
yeah,
massive things, though, bro, that you can never get. Like, look, a bit of role play. I mean, do you think you've got an anger problem? How are you with anger? Yeah. Let's say you
yeah, I
ask
don't have
that
an
in your
anger
marriage,
problem.
and you're like, I don't have an anger problem.
Yeah,
But you're not going to say
yeah,
you do. You're not going to say, yeah. It's really bad. I got to work on it, man. Sometimes I just
Yeah,
go
but that's
nuts.
why you should ask, when was the last time you got angry, or when the last time you got angry, what was it about?
Yeah, maybe. But then the
That's
same
an
thing.
improvement, but you're still able to
You
hide things.
still,
Yeah.
for a woman, like having an angry husband or having a guy that can just lose his steam is
Mm.
very scary and threatening.
That's a yeah, yeah,
And I've been angry before, of course, but I'd like to think I've never really, put fear in any of my family. To be fair, so it's just, but I know guys that are way angrier than me. I would want to see them angry, at home. So and I've obviously been in the police for God knows 5 years, and I've seen some real like domestic violence, bro. Some
mm,
proper horrible things, very dark and malicious things. And you wonder, like, obviously, a lot of those people are just boyfriends and girlfriends and stuff. But you wonder, like, you could have done with a welly in your life because this guy, all the red flags, and likewise with women as well, man. Like, you can find some very actually violent women, but also very, sinister women and stuff, and you would never really been able to get that. For example, here's another one. I know we can go forever about this stuff, but like, all these prenuptial agreements that people have, you know, people like to
yeah,
set out these prenuptial agreements before they even get into a relationship or marriage or whatever. I've seen
yeah,
marriages where, alhamdulillah, I've never had to experience anything like this, obviously, but I see people like very happily married and everything looks fine on the outside. And then the moment they get divorced, they just turn on each other like vicious. And Allah Alam what's
yeah,
heard in the marriage, but it's like, oh, the authorities are now involved and she's reporting him to this and he's reporting her about that. And they're trying to take kids away from each other and trying to, harm each other with kids and all this sort of stuff. And it's messy and it's toxic and it's
mm,
horrible. And it's like, well, this isn't the person I married. What happened to that person with all those beautiful qualities and vice versa, right? Um, so those are
mm,
things you can't, like, everyone's got capacity with the right circumstances to become very mean and malicious and a horrible person, especially when they're hurt.
yeah,
So those are things you can't weed out either. All you can do ultimately is be your best and try and choose someone who you objectively believe is the best for you and is doing their best. But if you're seeing this example, like, one of the golden rules that the bros give to each other is like, don't marry someone you're going to change. Like, you're going to try and change. It's just not going to happen. Like, you can't bank your whole future on those elements, and you don't
exactly.
want
Yeah,
that to be a sticking point. Like, it could happen before you get married, and maybe it's sincere, and inshallah it is, and maybe then we could have a different conversation. But like, if you're kind of going out of your, like, you're going out there to see what the prospects are, and you're kind of immediately interested in this, then maybe you're more interested in a relationship with the woman than you are, like the infatuation element, than you are with starting a family. You kind of being blindsided by your own
mm,
attraction than you are with the motivation to start a core family unit with Islam as the pillar of that foundation. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So just to end it on a positive note, if you think about what your values are as a person and the things that are important to you, obviously including Islam and commitment to Islam, and then you seek advice from wise people, you do istikhara, you also, look at their family and how their family are, and then you decide to go ahead, then you can't blame anyone after that if it doesn't go well. But inshallah, it will go well if you do that. So I think it's like with anything. I will accept the qadr that I get in a car crash, but I don't want to get in a car crash and I haven't put my seatbelt on because now it's my fault. So same with this, do your homework and then have tawakkul on Allah, and you can't then regret it at all
yeah,
after that.
yeah,
So yeah. And I just think that, if you feel, it's good to be humble, it's good to understand your deficiencies in your relationship with Allah, but don't let that allow you to marry someone who's potentially going to drag you down in your iman or your ibadah, or someone that you're going to fight with about a fundamental thing like commitment to Islam, and stuff like that. So really that's one thing, like aim really high in, right? The other things is like, depends, Yani, how important it is to you.
yeah.
So yeah, and may Allah grant everybody looking to get married with a pious, righteous, suitable, appropriate husband, wife.
I mean. And
we didn't get into the other issues, but that's great. That's a few more episodes ready for next time. Let us know what you think anyway in the comments.
Yeah.
And yeah, end it there.
Yeah, let's do that. Nice and
End it.
nice time, actually.
Okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.